She was trapped in a moving car with a dangerous man. No weapon, no way out, but she had one thing he didn't know about: his own phone. She dialed 911, and then, instead of screaming for help, she stayed completely calm. She made it sound like she was talking to him, but every word she said was a clue, a breadcrumb, meant for one person: her father, a man who spent his entire career tracking down fugitives. This is the story of Denise Amber Lee, and how she fought back, even when the odds were impossible. Charlotte County, Florida, January 17, 2008. Denise Lee was 21 years old, a young mother, a wife, a daughter. She had 2 boys, Noah, just 2 years old, and Adam, only 6 months. Her husband, Nathan, adored her. Her father, Rick, a veteran sergeant with the sheriff's office, was her hero, and she was his. Rick had spent decades as an undercover officer, tough, trained. He had seen everything this job could throw at a person, but nothing could prepare him for the phone call he was about to receive. It was 3:30 in the afternoon when Nathan called. He had just gotten home. The house was unusually hot. Noah was crying in the bedroom, and Denise was nowhere. The kids were alone. That was all Rick needed to hear. He knew Denise would never leave those boys. Something was very wrong. Rick arrived at the house within minutes. Police were already there, and their eyes were on Nathan. Rick shut that down immediately. He knew his son-in-law. He knew what guilt looked like. This wasn't it. His instincts sent him straight to the neighbor's house, and what she told him changed everything. Around 2 p.m., she had seen a green Camaro pull into the driveway, a white man she had never seen before. When he caught her looking, he stared her down. She ran inside. Rick had his first lead, a green Camaro. He called in his team without hesitation. Helicopters, search dogs, every available unit. His entire county was now on the hunt for one car. While patrol officers swept the roads, Rick stayed close to his radio, waiting, listening, and then, at 6:13 p.m., a 911 operator in a neighboring county picked up a call that would shift everything. The dispatcher heard a woman's voice, distressed, but speaking in a way that didn't quite make sense. She wasn't screaming for help. She was talking to someone in the car with her, but woven into those words were details: her name, her husband's name, references to where they were going. She was performing for her captor while feeding crucial information to the dispatcher at the same time. She was doing exactly what her father had taught her, exactly what a trained officer's daughter would do. But the captor realized something was wrong. The call cut off. The dispatcher immediately escalated. Rick was contacted. He listened to the recording, and when he heard his daughter's voice, desperate, shaking, trying so hard to hold it together, something in him broke. But he didn't stop moving, because Denise hadn't stopped either. 10 minutes after her call, another 911 call came in. A civilian. They had a name: Michael King, green Camaro, address on Sardinia Avenue, minutes from Denise's house. Rick's team moved immediately. They raided King's house. The TV was blasting, furniture nearly gone, empty rooms. No sign of Denise, but signs she had been there very recently. A makeshift bed, duct tape, long brown hairs, her hair. Rick knew what a change of location meant in an investigation. The clock had just started moving faster. Meanwhile, a civilian on the highway had spotted the green Camaro. She could hear screaming, banging from inside. She called 911. She asked if she should follow the car, and then, a critical mistake. The call was misfiled. No officers were dispatched. Rick and his team never heard about it. The Camaro disappeared into the night. By the time King was pulled over hours later, he was alone in the car. Denise was gone, and King sat in that interrogation room and claimed he was the one who had been taken. Even in her most terrifying moments, Denise was thinking. She slipped her heart-shaped ring, the one Nathan gave her before they were even engaged, into the back seat of the Camaro. She knew he would recognize it immediately. She pulled strands of her own hair out by the roots and hid them under the seat because she knew about DNA evidence. She needed the roots. She thought like a cop. She gave them everything she could. January 19th, 2 days after she vanished, search dogs led investigators to a patch of disturbed ground on the side of a road. There was no coming back from what they found. Denise Lee had been taken from her family. She was 21 years old. Her boys, Noah and Adam, had lost their mother. August 2009, Michael King stood trial for first-degree murder, kidnapping, and other serious charges. He pleaded not guilty. The defense pointed to gaps: no weapon, uncertain witness identification. But the prosecution had something King never planned for. They had Denise. Her 911 call played in that courtroom, her voice echoing off every every wall. Her ring, her hair, her DNA, all placed deliberately, all pointing directly at him. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty. First-degree murder. Michael King was sentenced to death. And when the verdict was read, Denise's family said 3 words that said everything. Denise won. Denise won. But the fight wasn't over. Rick and Nathan discovered that a properly dispatched response to that misfiled 911 call could have saved Denise's life. So they did something about it. They pushed a bill through the Florida legislature, the Denise Amber Lee Act, creating new statewide training standards for 911 operators. Over 200 hours of required training. Named after their daughter, their wife, their mother, Nathan started the Denise Amber Lee Foundation, traveling the country to train 911 dispatchers in her name. Denise's sister Amanda became a 911 operator herself, determined to be the dispatcher that Denise deserved that night. Noah and Adam, now young adults, carry their mother's story with pride. Noah writes her name in the clay before every at-bat. She sacrificed herself to make sure we were safe. We came first, and Nathan, years later, finally got back the heart-shaped ring she left in that back seat, the one that sent a killer to death row. He showed it to the boys. They held it, they smiled, and they said, "Wow, she had really small fingers." Denise Lee was 21 years old. She was a daughter, a wife, a mother, and one of the most remarkable human beings this story has ever covered. Drop Denise in the comments if her story deserves to be remembered. And follow, because every week we cover the cases that changed everything.